The first thing she felt was silence. Not the comforting kind that blankets a home, but the vacuum of space. A hollow, infinite silence that pressed against her mind even though no sound could exist. Her eyes snapped open, adjusting to the soft, pulsating glow around her. She was lying in a pod, suspended by transparent fluid, the hum of life support machinery the only real sound. Panels of lights and readouts reflected across the fluid's surface, displaying alien symbols she didn't fully understand. Her name, if it mattered, had been erased. Only fragments of memory lingered. Flashes of white corridors, a mission, a warning, and then darkness. Now she floated in an unfamiliar ship, orbiting a planet she didn't recognize. Its surface glowed faintly purple, veins of molten energy coursing like rivers across jagged mountain ranges. The pod hissed, releasing her gently into zero gravity. She flexed her hands instinctively, feeling the subtle vibration of the nanotech suit clinging to her skin. It was alive in a way that almost mirrored her own heartbeat. Holographic panels flickered to life around her, responding to her thoughts before she could even reach out. A voice, or maybe a projection, echoed softly in her mind. "Awaken, pilot. Systems nominal. Mission parameters locked." She blinked. The voice had no gender, no accent, but carried an undeniable authority. The ship itself, or the AI embedded within it, spoke. She felt a flicker of unease. Her survival depended on understanding this living vessel, but there was no time for hesitation. Outside, the planet rotated slowly, revealing jagged cliffs and glimmering energy currents at its poles. The pod released her fully. She floated toward the nearest control interface, fingertips brushing the transparent panels. Immediately, streams of alien data cascaded across the display. Her neural implants synced with the ship, translating the alien codes into something her mind could comprehend. The ship, biomechanical, alive, reacted like a sentient partner, offering control of navigation, weapons, and auxiliary systems in one seamless interface. Her first challenge came almost immediately. Sensors flared. Something approached from the dark side of the planet, a fleet of vessels unlike anything she had ever seen. Sleek, jagged, and almost organic in design, they moved in perfect coordination. The AI pulsed warnings through her consciousness. Hostile, engagement imminent. Her pulse accelerated. The suit adjusted, enhancing reflexes and providing micro-calculations for movement and targeting. She floated to the ship's command deck, an open chamber that defied traditional geometry. The floor rotated subtly, shifting gravity vectors to accommodate maneuvers impossible in conventional spacecraft. Holographic displays flared, energy nodes extended along the ship's hull like claws ready to strike. The first of the alien ships fired. Bright plasma bolts tore through the vacuum, and her ship responded instinctively, weaving through the attack with fluid grace. She marveled at the living vessel's capabilities. Energy shields extended automatically, hull morphing to deflect impact, weapon nodes firing with precise timing. It was a dance of death. Each attack from the enemy was met with a countermove she didn't consciously initiate. Yet, in some strange way, she was the conductor of this deadly symphony. A flash of purple light from the planet's surface drew her attention. Massive storms erupted along the molten veins, funneling energy into lightning-like currents that ripped across the atmosphere. The enemy fleet used this as cover, attempting to flank her. She had to act fast. Tapping into the ship's neural interface, she activated a maneuver she didn't fully understand, guiding the vessel down toward the planet's storm. Lightning arced around the ship, plasma shields flaring as the currents tore through the upper atmosphere. The enemy fired blindly, miscalculating the ship's unpredictable movement. One by one, their vessels were disabled, shredded by the combination of the storm's natural fury and the living ship's offensive capabilities. She gritted her teeth, adrenaline surging, and felt a flicker of exhilaration. For the first time, she realized this wasn't just survival. This was mastery. As the last enemy ship spiraled into the storm, Her neural interface pulsed urgently. A new signal appeared, a beacon deep within the planet's northern hemisphere. The ship responded instantly, adjusting course as if it understood the importance. Holographic panels projected the terrain below, vast jagged plains, rivers of molten energy, and structures that were clearly artificial yet alien beyond comprehension. The AI, or perhaps the ship itself, communicated again, a thought-like pulse in her mind. Core located. Mission imperative, retrieve and activate. Her lips parted but no sound came. Core. That word resonated in some deep, instinctive part of her memory. The mission, the warning, the flashes of white corridors, they all pointed here. She understood finally that this was only the beginning. Surviving the fleet was not enough. The core held answers, power, or something else entirely, and the forces hunting her would not wait. The ship descended into the planet's atmosphere, weaving through storms, molten rivers, and jagged cliffs with uncanny precision. She felt the pulse of the core before she could even see it, a deep resonance vibrating through her nanotech suit. Somewhere in the planet's northern hemisphere, the artifact awaited, and with it, the next trial. As the planet's surface rushed closer, she braced herself. The storm raged, lightning slicing the sky, energy currents twisting unpredictably. The AI pulsed once more, not as warning but encouragement. Survival alone would not be enough. She had to master the ship, face the core, and confront whatever lay in wait. With a deep breath, she guided the vessel into the storm, energy nodes humming, holographic panels flickering, and the northern beacon glowing like a promise of both danger and revelation. The journey had begun. The planet's surface loomed larger with every passing second. Jagged cliffs jutted out like teeth, molten rivers glowing beneath swirling purple storms. The beacon pulsed rhythmically in her neural interface, a heartbeat guiding her toward the core. Her hands moved instinctively, syncing with the living ship as it twisted, morphed, and slid through the planet's volatile atmosphere. The storm howled around them. Lightning arced across molten rivers, striking the surface in fractal patterns, while gravity fluctuations tugged at the ship. But the AI's guidance was precise, anticipating each current, each energy surge, and compensating instantaneously. She marveled at how alive the ship felt. Every pulse of energy seemed to resonate with her own heartbeat. Below, structures emerged, alien ruins scattered across jagged plains. They were massive, crystalline, and partially buried in molten rock. Sensors indicated faint energy readings, the first sign of the core. Yet the readings were intermittent, distorted by the planet's natural energy fields and the strange interference from unknown forces. Suddenly, the first obstacle revealed itself. A towering spire of alien crystal, jagged and irregular, extending hundreds of meters into the storm. As the ship approached, the spire emitted a low-frequency hum that resonated through the nanotech suit. Instinctively, she understood. This was a sentinel, a guardian of the core designed to challenge intruders. The ship reacted faster than thought. Energy blades extended, plasma nodes activated, shields flaring in sync with her neural impulses. The sentinel moved too, its crystalline surface shifting as if alive, absorbing energy and reshaping to strike. Lightning from the storm arced directly through its form, but instead of harming it, the energy seemed to empower the creature. She knew direct confrontation would be suicidal. Instead, she relied on the ship's adaptability. Twisting the vessel through narrow gaps between molten rivers and crystalline spires, she lured the sentinel into the storm's currents. Plasma pulses fired from the ship, carefully calculated to destabilize its crystalline structure without triggering its defensive absorption. It worked. The sentinel convulsed, energy surging wildly as it lost coherence. She darted past, following the pulsing signal from the core deeper into the alien ruins. Every step, or flight, was a test of skill, reflex, and intuition. The ruins themselves seemed to shift subtly, corridors bending and paths reshaping, as if the planet itself resisted intruders. Then she saw it, the core, suspended in a chamber of translucent energy hovering above a pit of molten crystal. The artifact glowed with pulses of deep blue and violet, resonating in her mind, beckoning her closer. Sensors detected a protective field around it, intricate and adaptive, capable of analyzing her thoughts and predicting actions. The living ship adjusted. Its energy nodes flared in synchronization with the core, creating a resonance that partially neutralized the protective field. She reached out, feeling the artifact's pulse through her neural implants. The core responded to her presence, unlocking layers of alien information, maps of the star system, historical records of civilizations long extinct, and warnings about the entity that had pursued her since orbit. But the moment was fleeting. From the shadows of the ruins, movement flickered. Smaller sentinels, spider-like constructs with energy filaments and razor edges, emerged, attacking in coordinated waves. The ship reacted instantly, deploying energy shields and plasma arcs while she maneuvered with surgical precision. Each attack, each dodge, each pulse of energy felt like a dance with the living ship as an extension of herself. After a tense, high-speed engagement, the last sentinel collapsed into molten crystal, sparks scattering in the chamber. Breathing, or the closest approximation in zero gravity, she approached the core. Neural interfaces linked fully, and information flowed into her mind like a torrent. She understood now. The core wasn't just a power source. It was a gateway, a key to controlling or confronting the entity across the entire star system. The planet's storm began to calm slightly, as if acknowledging her success. Yet the AI pulsed an urgent warning. This was only the first fragment. The entity had multiple sentinels across the system. Each fragment would test her further, pushing both her and the ship to the limit. With the core fragment secured, she ascended, the living ship adjusting to navigate through the now stabilizing storm. The northern beacon faded from the interface, replaced by coordinates leading to the next fragment, on a distant, icy moon at the edge of the system. As they departed, the entity's shadow flickered across the planet's horizon, colossal and menacing. She felt its gaze, patient and relentless, as if it knew this was just the beginning. The mission had expanded. Survival was no longer the objective. Mastery, strategy, and courage would determine the fate of the entire star system. And she was ready. The icy moon hung in the void like a pale jewel, its surface cracked with deep canyons and frozen geysers erupting sporadically into the black sky. Sensors detected low-level energy fluctuations, core fragments. But the environment was treacherous. Frigid winds, unstable ice formations, and natural electromagnetic storms that interfered with the ship's systems. She guided the living ship into orbit, watching the surface carefully. The AI pulsed, highlighting safe landing zones and energy anomalies. Her breath, or the mental equivalent in zero gravity, was steady. The icy terrain wasn't just a challenge of piloting, it was a test of adaptation. Every motion, every microcorrection in the ship would determine whether she survived the descent. As the ship touched down, frost and mist swirled around the landing pads. The core's signal was faint but persistent. She disembarked, moving across the frozen plains in her nanotech suit. The suit adapted to the environment, keeping her warm and protecting against electrical surges from the moon's sporadic storms. Holographic maps projected paths over the ice, but the terrain itself seemed to resist, crevices opening where she expected solid ground, geysers erupting unexpectedly. The first sentinels appeared, towering, quadrupedal constructs made of jagged ice and metal, energy cores glowing red within their chests. Unlike the previous core's guardians, these were mobile, fast, and able to anticipate her movement. The living ship hovered nearby, extending energy nodes and shields as she engaged. She darted between ice formations, firing plasma arcs that disoriented the sentinels. One lashed with an ice-forged appendage, shattering part of the frozen ground beneath her feet. The ship's energy shields absorbed the shockwave, and she rolled, letting the sentinel overshoot. Another strike and the sentinel collapsed into shards of ice and metal. Her neural interface pulsed, syncing with the core's signal. The artifact's resonance was stronger here but layered with traps. The AI warned. Environmental instability increasing. Proceed with caution. Multiple sentinels detected ahead. Ahead, a massive glacier formation loomed. Inside, the core fragment pulsed, suspended in a chamber of pure energy, spinning slowly above a pit of frozen plasma. The approach was narrow, flanked by more sentinels. Timing and precision were everything. She accelerated, weaving past the sentinels, her suit and ship in perfect harmony. Energy nodes flared as plasma arcs sliced incoming attacks. One sentinel lunged, but she pivoted mid-jump, firing a concentrated energy pulse that destabilized its core. Another fell as she skimmed the icy wall, her movements fluid and instinctive. Finally, she reached the chamber. The core fragment hovered, radiating a cold, blue energy that resonated with the nanotech suit. Neural implants connected fully, downloading maps, energy patterns, and historical data about the moon's civilization, an extinct race that had once controlled multiple core fragments across the system. But the triumph was fleeting. From the shadows of the ice tunnels emerged a new entity, unlike any sentinel before. It was semi-transparent, with shifting forms that refracted the aurora-like energy around it, making it almost invisible. Its presence distorted space and light, making targeting nearly impossible. The living ship responded immediately, twisting and extending energy nodes to create a protective barrier. She relied on intuition and the ship's neural synchronization, dodging attacks and firing precise energy pulses where she predicted the entity would move. After a tense engagement, the semi-transparent entity faltered as she lured it into an unstable geyser. Plasma energy erupted, destabilizing its form, and it dissipated into the storm. She retrieved the core fragment, its resonance now fully integrated into her neural interface. The icy moon behind her, the horizon of the system, stretched endlessly. The entity, still pursuing, remained in the shadows, patient, relentless. She ascended in the living ship, the next fragment already appearing on her neural map. A core hidden within the ruins of an abandoned orbital station, orbiting a gas giant cloaked in magnetic storms. Her pulse quickened, not from fear, but from exhilaration. The trials were only growing harder, the stakes ever higher. But with each fragment, her mastery of the living ship and understanding of the core's power expanded. The journey had escalated. Survival was no longer enough. She had to dominate, adapt, and anticipate, or the entity would consume the system and everything she had fought to protect. And she was ready. The gas giant loomed ahead like a living storm, its swirling bands of electric blue clouds stretching thousands of kilometers across space. Magnetic storms danced across the atmosphere, arcs of lightning illuminating the debris of abandoned orbital stations, long forgotten by any sentient being. The third core fragment pulsed somewhere within the wreckage, its signal distorted by the storm's electromagnetic interference. Her hands moved instinctively across the ship's interface, synced perfectly with the living vessel. Energy nodes flared, plasma arrays extended, and adaptive shields hummed as they entered the planet's upper atmosphere. The storm's winds buffeted the hull, but the living ship responded immediately, twisting and flexing with a grace that seemed almost organic. Sensors flickered. Multiple small vessels, automated drones from the ancient civilization, emerged from the shadows of the largest station fragments. Sleek, insectoid in design, they moved with lethal precision, firing energy filaments designed to disable both pilot and ship. She leaned into the interface, letting her neural implants guide her. The ship twisted sideways, plasma beams cutting across the drones in arcs of violet energy. Sparks flew, metal clashed with energy shields, and one by one, the drones disintegrated. Each movement was a blend of instinct, skill, and the living ship's adaptive intelligence. The core fragment's beacon pulsed faintly from within the largest station, a massive orbital hub partially destroyed by time and storms. Docking directly would be suicide. The magnetic storms interfered with targeting, and rogue debris moved unpredictably. Instead, she guided the ship through narrow corridors between shattered platforms, relying on the neural link to anticipate every swing of debris and surge of the storm. Inside the station, corridors twisted in impossible angles. Gravity fluctuations forced her to reorient constantly, while the living ship projected adaptive pathways to stabilize her movement. Holographic symbols flickered, remnants of the station's AI trying to warn her or perhaps confuse her. But she pushed forward, focusing on the pulsing signal. Then she saw it. The core fragment suspended in the station's central hub, surrounded by a lattice of energy tendrils that pulsed in sync with the gas giant's storms. Approaching directly was impossible. The tendrils would shred her nanotech suit in seconds. She needed precision and timing, waiting for the storm to align with the corridors to create a temporary safe path. The entity appeared again, larger than before, semi-visible in the charged plasma of the storm. Its eyes, or the semblance of eyes, glowed as it analyzed her movements. It didn't attack immediately, but its presence radiated a threat that pressed against her mind. She felt a familiar surge of adrenaline. The ultimate test wasn't just the environment or sentinels, it was surviving while the entity watched. She moved. Plasma arcs flared, shields pulsed, and the ship twisted through the energy lattice. Lightning from the storm struck tendrils at precise angles, destabilizing them momentarily. She surged forward, heart synced with the living ship's pulse, and reached the core fragment. Neural implants interfaced fully, downloading energy patterns and control sequences. But the entity reacted. A tendril of charged energy ripped through the corridor, knocking the ship sideways. She countered instinctively, flaring shields and firing plasma nodes to slice the energy beam. Sparks flew across the cockpit interface as she pushed the ship to its limits. Finally, the fragment was secured. Energy flowed into her neural interface, integrating with the previous two fragments. The living ship pulsed in response, almost euphoric in its synchronization. The entity recoiled slightly, retreating into the storm's depths, leaving her a narrow path to escape. As the storm subsided behind her, she ascended from the gas giant's orbit, the next core fragment already marked in the distance. A desert planet riddled with ruins, hidden beneath massive sandstorms that could strip metal in moments. She allowed herself a brief moment of triumph. 3 fragments collected, countless sentinels defeated, and the entity still at large, but each victory brought knowledge, power, and confidence. The journey was far from over, but mastery over the living ship and core fragments was slowly taking shape. Ahead, the desert planet shimmered under twin suns, dunes stretching endlessly, hiding secrets that would challenge everything she thought she knew about survival, combat, and the entity itself. The mission continued, and she was ready. The desert planet stretched endlessly beneath her, a sea of molten orange dunes shimmering under the twin suns. Heat waves rippled across the sand, and fierce electrical storms brewed in the northern hemisphere, throwing up plasma columns that lit the sky with jagged arcs of lightning. Her sensors barely kept pace with the constantly shifting terrain. The 4th core fragment was buried within the ruins of an ancient desert city, half buried by centuries of sandstorms and tectonic shifts. The AI pulsed a warning. Energy readings indicated a complex security network designed to test any intruder's intellect, reflexes, and adaptability. She guided the living ship low over the dunes, sand blasting against the hull. The ship flexed, creating a protective bubble around her, plasma nodes flaring to disperse the worst of the abrasive particles. Holographic pathways projected ahead, mapping safe corridors through shifting dunes, but the desert itself seemed alive, moving, reshaping with every gust of wind. The first sentinels emerged from the sands, towering constructs resembling insectoid warriors, their armor glinting with reflective surfaces that absorbed light and energy. They moved with unnatural speed, leaping across dunes and creating miniature dust storms with every strike. She dived into action, firing plasma arcs and extending energy blades from the ship. The sentinels reacted instantly, shifting their armor and reorienting their attacks. Every motion was a high-speed puzzle: dodge, counter, strike, adapt. The living ship twisted with her neural impulses, transforming its form mid-flight to slice through obstacles, redirect energy, and anticipate enemy movement. Deeper into the ruins, the core fragment pulsed, its blue-white light visible through cracks in the sand and broken walls. But it wasn't unguarded. Energy tendrils sprouted from the ruins themselves, responding to her proximity. Sensors detected that the ruins were almost alive, reacting with defensive precision. One wrong move, and a tendril could pierce both ship and suit. She paused for a fraction of a second, syncing fully with the ship and her neural implants. The ship pulsed in response, almost like it understood her thought: timing, rhythm, flow. Using the living ship's adaptive abilities, she maneuvered through the ruins with uncanny precision, dodging energy strikes and collapsing walls. Sparks and sand flew around her as the ship extended plasma arcs to disable sentinels and disrupt the tendrils' resonance. Finally, she reached the fragment. It hovered above a ruined temple, spinning slowly, energy pulsating in rhythm with her neural interface. As she interfaced with it, visions flooded her mind. Maps of the desert planet, ancient civilizations that once harnessed the core fragments, and warnings about the entity's relentless pursuit. But there was no time for reflection. From the dunes, a new form approached, the desert variant of the entity, adapted to the harsh environment. Its crystalline surface was jagged and opaque, reflecting both suns, while electrical currents ran along its limbs. It moved with terrifying speed, sand and plasma trailing in its wake. The living ship reacted instantly, twisting into a defensive formation, energy shields flaring. She dodged, countered, and struck, relying on every ounce of training, intuition, and connection with the ship. Lightning from the storm arced across the entity, momentarily destabilizing it, giving her just enough window to extract the fragment. With the fourth core fragment secured, the desert storm began to subside. The entity recoiled, fading into the horizon, its presence still palpable and threatening. She ascended, leaving the desert behind, and plotted a course for the next fragment. A floating archipelago of magnetic islands orbiting a gas giant, where both environmental hazards and alien guardians would escalate the challenge. Each fragment she collected brought more power, more knowledge, and more awareness of the entity's capabilities. She wasn't just surviving, she was adapting, mastering the living ship, and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. The twin suns set behind the dunes as the ship rose into the orbit of the desert planet, the horizon burning with crimson light. The journey continued, and every core fragment brought her one step closer to understanding and confronting the ultimate threat that had shadowed her from the stars themselves. The magnetic islands floated like shards of metal and rock around the gas giant, arcs of energy crackling between them. Her ship maneuvered carefully, shields flaring as electromagnetic storms threatened to tear hull and circuits apart. The fifth core fragment pulsed faintly from the largest island, but the path was guarded by sentinels with adaptive magnetic fields. She dove through energy arcs, twisting the living ship through narrow gaps. Plasma beams and energy blades neutralized the guardians, each strike precise, guided by her neural connection with the ship. Finally, she reached the core fragment. As her neural implants interfaced, the ship pulsed in harmony, absorbing knowledge of the fragment, the entity, and the star system's hidden structures. The entity appeared, colossal and glowing with storm energy, its eyes fixed on her. But she was ready. The ship shifted defensively, plasma nodes activated, and she pushed forward. A single, fluid maneuver